Hi there, everyone. Thank you for coming back and joining me for another episode of Mark on Comics. So before I get started, I would like to ask that you would please hit the subscribe button. Doesn't cost you anything. The like button gets me in front of more people. And if you like what I do, please hit the bell so you'll see when I bring out new material. So today, what I've got for you is a little bit of nostalgia, as you've seen in the thumbnail. So what I've got is I went ahead and purchased the Overstreet Comic Book Price Guide number 9 from 1979. Now, if you don't know why this is significant, this is the year I started collecting comics. So I thought it would be great to have a price guide from that time. I didn't have any price guides when I first got started. Yes, they were out. This is issue number 9, but I hadn't bought any. So I just had to go on the fly from what I knew from other people. So today's a little nostalgic because it's the year I got started, but it's also a little melancholy because some of these prices, it's like, oh my gosh. I wish I had been able to buy that. But I'm glad I didn't actually, because if you saw my episode on my comic history, you'll know that in 1985, when I came back from Germany, all my books were lost by the Air Force shipping company. At that time, there were no storage units. I had no place to put them. So I went over to Germany after collecting for 3 years, collected for 3 more years. So I had 6 years worth of books when I came back in 1985, and they were lost. So I had to put in a claim. Now, I had asked when I was over there, do I need to get insurance for my collectibles? No, you're covered. No, I was not. I was covered for $3,000. And when I bought the price guide number 16, which was the 85-86, I had $18,000 worth of comics, and they were gone. So if I'd bought any of these books, I'd be in real trouble. So we got a nice Wally Wood cover on the price guide number 9, and it's got some great advertisements. That's about EC. Claude's Letters to Mad. So don't know anything about that. It's just a page I flipped to. Here's another one. Classic Movie and Comic Center. So really interesting. There's a lot of articles in it that are a lot of fun. Here's a page of covers. You'll notice Showcase 4, which is one I'm covering. And then we got West Coast Comics, Wholesale Comics. And then on the back, I didn't realize at the time, but Bill Cole was selling bags and boards. Look at that. So you could get 100 comic bags for $3. You get Golden Age comic bags, 100 of them for $3.75. Or Monster Size Magazine for $4. 100 magazine bags for $4. Don't see the boards, but I don't think I can go back and get those prices. So there they are. So on the list, so I'm going to start off with All American Comics number 16. Came out in July of 1940. This is the first appearance of Green Lantern, which was written by Bill Finger, co-creator of Batman, with art by Martin Odell, which I had the pleasure of meeting a few years ago at Comic-Con. I do have a Green Lantern annual somewhere signed by Martin. So that's really great. And this cover is done by Sheldon Moldoff, which I believe he's down in there a little bit more. So in 1979, there was no 10-point grading system as of yet. So you had fair, good, good plus, fine minus, fine, fine plus, mint minus, near mint, mint, and mint plus. So that was it. That was the grading scale, approximately. So for a good copy of All-American Comics number 16, it would have cost you $350 for a good copy. Ooh. Fine, $700. And a nice mint copy would have run you $1,050 according to the price guide. No internet at that time, so everything went based on the guide. So yes, some people did sell them for a little bit less, make it easier on them. Some people sold them for a little bit more. But the average selling price was about $1,050 for that mint, All-American Comics number 16. Next we have Batman number 1. Written according to DC Archives by Bill Finger. But I'm going to say Bob Kane was a co-writer, but they say it was Bill Finger. But the art was Bob Kane, and the cover for Batman 1 was Bob Kane. So a Batman 1 in good condition would have cost you $600. That was my monthly pay at the time. No way I was buying Batman 1, even in good condition. Because Fine was running $1,500 and a mint copy was $2,400. Again, according to the price guide. Next, we move over to the ever popular Action Comics number 1. I think you've heard of it. A recent copy in 9.0, I believe it was, just sold for $9.1 million. It did come out in June of 1938, and it had the first appearance of Superman, written by Jerry Siegel, art by Joe Shuster, with a cover by Joe Shuster. Now, in 1938, this was a 10-cent cover price. But in 1979, you could get a good copy for $1,400, a fine copy for $5,250, and a mint copy for $8,400. Now, in 1981, I believe it was, I saw a newspaper article about Action Comics number 1. Comic book dealer spent $19,000 on Action Comics number 1. Now, personally, if you weren't in the know, you didn't get it. But he was in the know, took a gamble, and I think it paid off. So congratulations, comic book dealer. Next, we move over to Superman number 1, which we were just talking about, Action Comics. Well, Superman number 1 was released in June of 1939, written by Jerry Siegel, art by Joe Shuster, with a cover by Joe Shuster. And it apparently had a reprint of Superman's origin, but who cares? 1939, I'm in. Let me have one. Can't afford it. So, a good copy would cost you $1,400 in 1979. Fine copy would cost you $2,800, and a mint copy, $4,200. Half the cost of the Action 1, but $4,200. I would have had to save for a couple years to be able to afford that. Next, I move on to a more modern comic, Tales of Suspense 39, released in December 1962. I do believe most people should know Tales of Suspense 39 was your first appearance of Iron Man, Tony Stark. Really interesting cover. I really liked it. In 1981, I went to my first comic convention. It was just before Heroes Con came, still put on by Sheldon Drum then. It was a little mini con, and I went with my local comic book dealer, and he came back. He had found somebody, and he bought a Tales of Suspense 39 for $350. Now, that was in 1982, because in 1979, Tales of Suspense 39, written by Stan Lee, with art by Don Heck and a cover by Don Heck and Jack Kirby. A good copy would cost you a whole whopping $45. Fine copy would cost you $90. And then a mint copy was $135. Way out of my price range. As I said, I made about $600 a month. So $135, the wife would have killed me. So next I move on to another key, high key, Marvel key. That is Fantastic Four #1, released in March of 1966. So in 1979, this was a relatively new book. So Fantastic Four #1 was written by Stan Lee, had art and cover by Jack Kirby, and a good copy would set you back a whole $250. Fine copy, $575. And a mint copy, $900. That's why I say this list is a little melancholy. I probably would have been able to scrape together $250 if I absolutely had to. But I didn't. And as I said, I'm glad I did, because it would have been lost. Next, we move over to another relatively new book, Fantastic Four 48, released in March of 1966, written by Stan Lee, and again, art and cover by Jack Kirby, the King. So a good copy in 1979 would cost you a whopping $7. Fine copy was $14. And that mint copy, $21. That's it. I've paid a lot more for copies of Fantastic Four 48 since then. But great book to have. Great book to have. Next, another relatively new book, X-Men. Next, I've got for you a book, not a blue chip per se, but this is definitely on a lot of people's wish list. I want it. I want it. I've owned a couple copies and I've sold a couple copies, so I'm currently without Giant Size X-Men #1, released in May of 1975. So when this price guide came out, this book was only 4 years old. It was written by Len Wein, with art by Dave Cockrum and a cover by Gil Kane and Dave Cockrum. And it's really nice. Dave Cockrum's widow is out at Heroes Con every year telling stories of Dave and his comic journey. So that's really exciting. So back in 1979, this 4-year-old book would cost you in good condition $1.50. Let that sink in. $1.50. Aye. Fine, $3. And that mint copy, $4.50. Now, I didn't buy my first copy of Giant Size X-Men #1 until I got back in the hobby in 1991. Don't remember what I paid for it, but that's when I got one, when I got back in the hobby, and yes, I've sold it. So, that's where we're going from there. Next, another blue chip oldie. I've got Flash Comics #1 from January of 1940. Writer was Gardner Fox. The art was Harry Lampert or Harry Lampere. I'm not sure how that's pronounced. And again, a cover by Sheldon Moldoff. So really exciting. So good condition. A Flash Comics #1 would cost you $275. What? Fine was $550 and mint was $825. Ouch. Ouch. And next we've got the #2 blue chip comic that everybody wishes they could own. That is Detective Comics 27, released in May of 1939. Writer again, according to DC, is Bill Finger, but Bob Kane had input and was, I assume, partly responsible for Batman. Wasn't just Bill Finger, but I got to give credit to both of them. So it had art by Bob Kane and a cover by Bob Kane. So in 1979, good condition would have cost you $1,200. Fine, $2,850, and a mint copy would have cost you $4,500. I mean, I couldn't have even afforded the $1,200, let alone $4,000, but those who saw the light purchased. They made a good choice. I hope somebody's still out there that has a couple copies in their possession that at today's price they could make a lot more. I do want to mention I'm not giving today's prices because today with the internet, the price guide, the different books and different items on the internet like comics price guide, these are all fluid. So I'm certainly not going to give what they are because tomorrow they could be a couple $1,000s higher. So I don't want to do that. But if you want to look them up, look them up. Next we have Captain America #1, which is the first appearance, I'll have you know, of Captain America and Bucky Barnes, who later became the Winter Soldier. So this book was released in March of 1941. So the writer was Joe Simon and Jack Kirby, and the art was Jack Kirby and Joe Simon with a Jack Kirby cover. So great book. I actually had an LCS owner who got a copy and he let me hold it, look through it. Flabbergasted. Loved it. But in 1979, a good copy would cost you $800. A fine copy would cost you $1,600, and a mint copy would cost you $2,400. Captain America #1. Ouch. Next, I've got another one that's not necessarily a blue chip, but it's important to me. It's Flash Comics 110, which is the first appearance of Wally West. So to me, I believe that's an important book. Might not be a blue chip, but it's another minor key. So I'm including it on this. It was released in January of 1960, written by John Broome, with art by Carmen Infantino and a cover by Carmen Infantino. A good copy would cost you $12. fine 24, mint 36. So sad. So sad. Next, move on to Showcase number 4, the start of the Silver Age in October of 1956. I was born in November 1956, and I have a book from September. I have an adventure comics from September of 1956. I'm really attached to that. I love it. 2 months before my birthday. So showcase number 4, you know, Flash. Yeah, start of the Silver Age. Writer was Robert Kniger. I'm sure I butchered that name. If you're still around, sir, I apologize. With art by Carmen Infantino and a cover by Carmen Infantino and Joe Kubert. Love Joe Kubert. One of my favorites. So showcase number 4 would have set you back a whole $200 in good condition. Fine copy, $500, and a mint copy, $800. Ouch. But it is what it is. So next on the list is Pep Comics number 22, released in December of 1941. Pep 22 was the introduction of our everyman Archie Andrews. So this cover didn't even mention Archie. They just, went on with its regular superhero, the Shield, on the cover, and Archie Andrews was on the inside. So there were a couple stories. One story was written by Harry Shorten with art by Irv Novak, and the cover was Irv Novak. One of the other stories was written by Joe Blair with art by Paul Reinman. And the Archie story was written by Vic Bloom with art by Bob Montana. So a good copy would have set you back $60. A fine copy would have set you back $120, and a mint copy would have been $180. And another, maybe blue chip, I don't know, but definitely key, high key. We've got Journey into Mystery 83, the first appearance of Thor, released in 1962. Written by Stan Lee and Larry Lieber. Those of you that don't know, Larry Lieber is Stan Lee's younger brother. So he brought him in to Marvel and had him work. He's written a lot of great stories. I don't want to take away saying, oh, he was just Stan Lee's brother. No, he had a lot of great stories that he wrote by himself. And the art for Journey in the Mystery and cover was by Jack Kirby. So Journey in Mystery 1979 would have set you back in good condition, $90. Fine, $180. Mint, $270. Ouch. See, I was collecting, but no way I could afford any of these. Well, any of these blue chip or older high grades, including Avengers number 1, released in July of 1963, with Thor, Iron Man, Ant-Man, Hulk, and the Wasp as members of the Avengers. Written by Stan Lee with art and cover by Jack Kirby, the King. So, a good Avengers 1 would have set you back $50, a fine $100, and a mint a whopping $150 for Avengers number 1. Then we've got The Brave and the Bold, number 28, first appearance of the Justice League. You got several of the DC characters getting together and fighting Starro. So, Brave and the Bold 28 was released in March of 1960. And by the way, Stan Lee's publisher said he wanted a team that would be reminiscent for everybody of the Justice League, and that's where Stan Lee came up with the Fantastic Four. So we owe the Fantastic Four to Gardner Fox, who was the writer, Brave and the Bold 28. The art was Mike Sagofsky, and the cover was Mike Sagofsky and Murphy Anderson and Ira Schnapp. So a good copy was $28, fine $50, mint $75. First appearance of the Justice League. Now, here's another book, not necessarily a blue key, but I like it, so I included it. And that is Strange Tales 101, July of 1962. So Strange Tales 101 had the first solo adventures of the Human Torch, where he met up with a lot of other people, the Iceman, the Beatles, and many others. But, as I said, it was released in July of 1962. The writers were Stan Lee and Larry Lieber, with art and cover by Jack Kirby. A good copy was $18, fine $36, and mint $54. Now, currently, I do own a copy of Strange Tales 101, and it's probably in just good condition. That's probably it. But I don't care. I like it. It's mine. So next we've got Tales to Astonish 27. Released in September 1961, and it is the first appearance of Henry Pym. He wasn't Ant-Man yet, but he met a colony of ants in this book, and from this came Ant-Man. So it was written by Stan Lee, with art and cover by Jack Kirby. 1979, a good copy was $60, fine $120, and mint $180. I'm on the lookout for one. I want to get one when I can find it and afford it. Next, one of everybody's hottest grails, Amazing Fantasy 15, first appearance of Spider-Man, released in June of 1962. Writers were Stan Lee and Steve Ditko, and the art was Steve Ditko, but the cover was Jack Kirby. Famous cover. But a good copy was $150, fine $300, and a mint copy $450 for Amazing Fantasy 15. Ouch! Ouch. Next, continuing in that vein, we got Amazing Spider-Man number 1 from 1963. Writer was Stan Lee. Art was Steve Ditko and Jack Kirby, and the cover was by Ditko and Kirby. Good copy was $135, with a fine being $270 and a mint being $405. ASM 1. Wow. Next, we've got Incredible Hulk number 1 from March of 1962. The writer was Stan Lee, the art was Jack Kirby, and the cover was Jack Kirby. Now, I'm lucky enough I own an issue 3 and an issue 6 currently. Incredible Hulk 1, kind of out of my price range right now, but you never know. You never know. Last, I've got Incredible Hulk 181, released in July 1974. This book is the second appearance of Wolverine. I don't care what people say. They say, no, 181 is his first appearance. No, he was on the back page of 180 and he said something. So to me, that was his first appearance in comics. Because if you look at one of my other videos, there's a Thor comic book that has an advertisement for Hulk 181, which came out prior. So it would be maybe the first appearance, second appearance in Hulk 180. But everybody's on the lookout for Incredible Hulk 181. Now this book was only 5 years old when the price guide came out. So it was written by Len Wein. Thank you, Len, for introducing us to Wolverine. So Len has passed, but I still thank him for everything he's done. And the art and cover, also by someone who is no longer with us, Herb Trimpe. Thank you, Herb. I had the pleasure of meeting both of them. I'm really glad I did, as well as Stan Lee and others. So, Incredible Hulk 181. 1979 price guide. A good copy, 40 cents. A fine copy, 80 cents. And going on that trend, a mint copy would have set you back $1.20. But I was not into Wolverine at that time, 1979 when I started to 85 when I had to stop for a few years. Because of what I talked about, my stuff being lost, I stopped collecting from 86 to 91, and I've been collecting ever since. I have owned one copy of Incredible Hulk 181, and I did not pay $1.20 for it. So I'll leave that to your imagination. And in case you're wondering, what was the grade? 5.5. That was the grade. So that's my nostalgia list and a little heartbreaking list. I wish I could have bought some of these books, but that's the way it is. So that's the list I've put out. Now, what are you interested in knowing what the price was in 1979? I also do have the 1978 book number 8 in the Overstreet Price Guide. I did forget to mention at the beginning, I did mention there was no way to get values really other than the price guide. And there were some other publications that came out around that time. But I did want to mention that comic book collecting as a hobby really started around 1969. People bought books. There are actually a few people that understood in advance, and they were buying books in the early 60s, multiple copies of Fantastic Four 1, Amazing Fantasy 15. They just thought things would take off. And then in 1971, Robert Overstreet came out with the Overstreet Price Guide. I got to get me one of that number 1 just to see. Because I do enjoy the price guides. As I said, I've got this number 9. I've got a number 8. When I quit in 1985, I bought a price guide, number 16. I've got that one. So those are my 3 earliest, and I do have several years back. So if you are interested in knowing, hey, I have a blah, 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 blah. I'd like to know what the price was on that in 1979. 1978, 1985, and then some other later years. I got you covered. Just let me know. So thank you once again for joining me for another episode of Mark on Comics. I really appreciate you being here. Thank you so very much, everybody. See you next time. Bye-bye.